YouTube. So full of talented, charming, and hardworking content creators who put their heart and soul into distilling their brilliance down to create the YouTube tutorial. And as soon as you start watching, you immediately feel the knowledge, the power, and you thank your masters and you go back to your life, having been changed forever, and then you win all of esports, right? No. You've watched 100 tutorials and nothing's changed. This is something that I struggled with too for so many years. But first of all, it's not the tutorial's fault. So I will take a minute to talk about what tutorials are good for, and then we'll get into the good stuff. I'm gonna show you exactly why they don't work and what the f we're gonna do about it so that we can actually start learning very, very quickly. Which makes this a tutorial too. If you don't know why you should even listen to me. My name is Sinks and I was crap at video games until I was 24 when I decided that's not good enough, and within a year I was a completely different beast. This is me then, this is me now. And I improved not only my gaming, but I actually changed my entire life. So I started a company focused on creating beautiful gameplay, and then I realized that it would be kind of sick to take everything I learned, figure out why it worked and how to make it work for other people, and with the help of my friends we started the MindGamers, whose job it is to help you improve your life by improving at games. And since then we've helped people time and again, and the results were never what anyone expected. But again, to show some love to the hard work of your favorite top search results, here's what's great about YouTube tutorials. Well, if I want to do an advanced speedrunning strategy, or I want to learn some obscure glitch from way back when, watching someone walk me through it,
you're gonna have to board it from behind in order to get it to go through the hole.
Can get me much closer than if I were to learn everything from scratch. And another great example of this is a really hard boss fight. Going in prepared, knowing what moves the boss can use and how to avoid them, can save me a lot of time in beating that boss. In other words, they're great at giving you information that might take a long time to find on your own, but they're not great at making you great. So then, why don't they work? Well, for one, they're impractical. Getting a whole lot of information condensed into a single video means that I won't necessarily get the chance to apply what I'm learning or turn it from short-term memory to long-term memory. In other words, I know what I just learned, but I can't do what I learned. And that's fine. Obviously, we're not asking for anything unrealistic. The problem is that no one actually taught us how to use the info we just learned so that it becomes a natural part of our gameplay. Despite what school would have you believe, sitting down and listening to someone talk for an hour, even while showing you examples, just doesn't translate to real-world results. And in video games, trial and error is super important. So when you have a tutorial that's titled How to Have Perfect Aim, that tutorial has a glaring problem because, 2, YouTube tutorials target the wrong things. Let's stick with that example for a second. Let's say I want to know how to have perfect aim, and I watch that video and holy crap, their aim is crazy. Alright, well, they're saying I should do this 1 hour aim routine every day for the next 2 weeks. Alright, sick, I can do that. Now let's imagine what's gonna happen next. Day 1, let's go, baby. I already feel the shroud inside me. Okay, let's get it. Alright, 1 hour done. Okay, holy wow, that was a lot. Alright, let me go test it out. I bet I'm gonna be so much better, and you hop into your game and you're doing terribly. Pretty sure you did better yesterday. What's going on, bro? God, you suck. No, you know what? That tutorial sucked. How dare they make me even more trash than I was yesterday? Alright, listen, maybe I was expecting too much. It was only day 1, but that was yesterday, which might as well be 1994. And today is today. Today is the day. Oh God, right, I have to do another hour. Fine. Here we go, and we're done. Day 3. So what's new on Steam, bro? You know what I mean? So what you just saw might seem like a super specific example that doesn't apply to everything, and that's true, but what it does show us is the real problem we're here to talk about. When we said YouTube tutorials target the wrong things, it's because what you just saw is someone, me, you, everyone, their mom, the dog, who doesn't necessarily have a problem with their aim, but has a problem with focus. And you're like, Sinks, what do you mean where did you even get that from? Think about it. This person did better yesterday than they did today, because when it was time to apply all the training, what they were focused on was seeing the results instead of playing the game. And doesn't this kind of sound like you? But of course, if your head is elsewhere, you won't play as well as you could be. And if you're just playing to see the results from the hard 1-hour training you're doing, and you don't see them after 2 or 4 or even 10 days, obviously you're gonna get discouraged. So the problem here is that YouTube tutorials often teach us what to do instead of how to think. So you'll hear something like, if you do this routine for 2 weeks straight, you will be amazing at aim. And oftentimes that might even work, except if other conditions aren't true, all the practice in the world won't even matter. Literally. If I believe that I'm a shitty gamer, it's impossible for me to be a good one no matter how much I practice. There's something called the theory of self-consistency by Dr. Prescott Lecky. In his book by the same name, he'll tell you that it's impossible for us to behave in a way that is incongruent with how we see ourselves. If you can learn one thing from this video, if you can learn one thing this year, learn to realize what you think about yourself, because that's exactly how you will behave, perform, and be perceived by others. You are what you think. I realize how big of a tangent this is, but I believe all the most impactful moments are the ones that sneak up on you. Hopefully, you weren't ready. And we will get to more practical solutions in a bit, but there's still one more thing I want to talk about that holds YouTube videos back, and out of this entire list, this one is probably the biggest. YouTube tutorials were made by someone for someone. And that was the hardest part to work around when we were creating the Ultimate Gamer course, because if you take two people, identical twins, and you raise them in the same environment and they go through the same experiences, they're still going to be different people by the end. And in the same way, how you learn something will always be entirely personal to you. If you asked me what is the most important skill that I learned in the last 10 years, I will tell you without a shadow of a doubt that it is learning to teach myself. Our brains not only perceive information differently, but they're also motivated by different things. For example, one person might be good at sitting down and studying for an exam every day for a month before that exam, but that sounds like pure torture to me. Some people might call it procrastination, but I call it thriving under pressure. If I have an exam in 3 days and I don't even know what it's about, the stress that comes with that means that I'm going to have laser focus for the next 3 days. And you know what? I end up going there completely at peace and with full confidence that I'm going to ace it. This is something that I had to learn about myself. And that's what's annoying about tutorials, is we watch them and we feel helpless because no matter how many we watched, nothing changed. But maybe watching all these tutorials isn't the way for me to improve. And in the next part, we're going to have some suggestions for you to try out so that you can find out how you improve your way of doing things. Alright, so we just said a whole lot, and there's actually way more problems, like the fact that these videos are free and there's a million of them, so that makes them really hard to appreciate and take seriously. But to be honest, you don't really have to remember any of it in order to fix this issue. But the reason we wanted to make it incandescently clear that if YouTube hasn't worked, something has to change in the way that you consume them tuts. And the reason that needs to be clear is because then hopefully you won't fall into the trap of watching them mindlessly while expecting a miracle. Now, of course, we still want to watch tutorials, but instead of watching them mindlessly, we want to watch them mindfully. So the first thing we want to do is start by being very picky about which tutorials we watch, by focusing first and foremost on basic principles thinking. Basic principles thinking is not very often applied when it comes to video games, but what it basically teaches us to do is figure out the absolute basics of what we're trying to learn are, and then work for as long as it takes to master those basics, because once we have those down in our muscle memory, then we actually create a much deeper understanding of the game that we're playing. And the thing is, the basics are the first thing that we want to skip. because we want to get to the good stuff. But if you go and watch 10 great streamers from your favorite game, and then you watch the 10 best streamers, I promise that you'll notice that the absolute top of the food chain nail those little things that we stop thinking about because we focus on all the flashy stuff and we ignore how hard they work to ensure that they can do a simple slide jump with frame perfect timing.
Here we go.
Once we have the basics down and absolutely mastered, the second thing we want to do differently is start treating YouTube videos like all the best tutorials inside video games. You learn a new skill right before you're supposed to start using it, and then the game will give you multiple challenges where the solution to those challenges lies in using that skill that you just learned, just to make sure that you know how to use it right. A great way to do this is something that we talked about in a short that we made, which you can find on our channel. And the title is The 80% Rule. The basic idea here is that when you learn a new skill, if you focus on it until you reach a good enough point where you're able to use it naturally in your game at a high level without needing to think about it too much, then you can pretty much leave that skill and you never have to focus on practicing it again, because maintaining a skill takes a lot less effort than improving it or getting it to that good enough level. So in the case of a YouTube tutorial, what we can do is chop it up into multiple parts where every step of the way we make sure we've mastered everything that came before and combine it all easily before we challenge ourselves further. Notice that we are starting to rely on YouTube videos less and less here, and that's because every step of the way you are the teacher, not the tutorial. So make sure you figure out what kind of challenges you can give yourself based on the tutorial that actually help you learn. Remember that just because the person teaching you learned it this way doesn't mean the same will work for you. It's not that hard to get started in finding your own inner coach. Just start practicing, and whenever you feel ready, add a little bit of challenge or a twist that sounds fun for you, and you just became your own teacher. So I had this whole thing I wanted to add, and I was gonna put gameplay from Atomic Hearts on top of it, and it was all profound and shit, and if you're curious, here's the script. But instead of ending it on that, I realized halfway through editing that something much more important allowed me to get to where I am. It's really easy to start thinking about how good you want to get, or how crap you are, and forget about why you started playing your game in the first place. when I separated between playtime and practice time, I started having more fun in playtime, and I started improving a lot better in practice time. So yeah, make sure you play in ways that are actually fun for you, because otherwise you'll end up like an esports pro who can't wait to stop playing, because at some point it just becomes work for them. So yeah, I hope you learned something from this video. If you did, we're going to be making a lot more like this that are just as relevant and useful for everyone. Yeah, subscribe if that sounds fun to you. Peace.